Are there moderates in the Republican Party willing to push back against their horrendous budget that they just passed in the House? Well, here's a possibility. Raw Story reports Nevada's Republican governor, who endorsed Trump for president, found himself pleading with his own party to leave Medicaid alone after House Republicans advanced their budget late Tuesday, which ostensibly calls for cuts to the government health care program for low-income Americans. $880 billion to be exact. The House GOP budget resolution calls for significant cuts that are likely to impact Medicaid funding. The resolution directs the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which oversees Medicaid, to find $880 billion in spending cuts over the next decade. While the resolution does not explicitly mention Medicaid cuts, the math and structure of the budget make it highly likely that Medicaid will bear the brunt of the planned cuts. And that has left some Republicans across the country feeling like they're stuck holding the bag. Yeah, so this guy's onto something. He probably is trying to rehabilitate the Republican Party's credibility because Trump promised not to cut Medicaid. Now, obviously, Trump is not in the House of Representatives. He's in the presidency. But still, if the Republican Party does this after Trump campaigning on not cutting Medicaid, not cutting Medicare, not cutting Social Security, that's going to be a horrific look. Governor Joe Lombardo penned a letter Wednesday asking Congress to avoid slashing Medicaid funding, the Nevada Independent reported. He acknowledged that while fiscal responsibility is critical, slashing the program could have serious consequences. Yes, indeed it could. Serious electoral consequences, but worse yet, consequences for the average American, for working Americans, for poor Americans. It's not going to be good. Quote, Nevada has demonstrated that federal investment in the state's Medicaid program has improved both health outcomes and productivity, yet challenges remain, Lombardo said. By leveraging federal funding, the state has expanded access to school health services, lowered the uninsured rate, and made significant progress in enhancing behavioral health care for both children and adults. Medicaid allows his state flexibility to adapt to changing demographics, he said. Limiting Medicaid funding would clearly hinder that ability. Lombardo specified what he called proposals that would be most detrimental to his state: rolling back critical expansion population funding, limiting federal funding with a per capita cap model, and lowering the safe harbor for provider taxes for hospitals. Quote, beyond its role providing coverage for vulnerable populations, hospitals, clinics, and providers across the state depend on Medicaid reimbursements to sustain operations, maintain staffing levels, and invest in critical services, Lombardo told state lawmakers separately. As of October, 72.1 million people were enrolled in Medicaid nationally. That's a good chunk of the population. This guy's correct. It's insane that he endorsed President Trump, but also in a way it sort of makes sense because maybe he was like, oh yeah, okay, I like that Trump's not going to cut Medicaid. But dude, how could you fall for it? How could you fall for it? How could you fall for this? The Republican Party is for slashing Medicaid. They're for slashing your government benefits. They always do this. They say, we're not going to cut it. Usually just the most balls to the wall Republicans will say, yeah, we want to cut this, and hardcore libertarians. But Trump, who can take Trump's word for it? Why would you take what Trump says at face value? Why would you take what almost any elected Republican or Republican campaigning for elected office says at face value? Of course, Democrats lie, but the Republican Party is notorious. The Republican Party puts out far more BS, far more nonsense, and plays more games than the Democratic Party. And this is their game. Their game is, we're not going to cut things, we care about the working class. And then they pass some budget that purportedly is pro-working class, but is nothing but anti-working class, and a giant giveaway to the top 5% and the top 1%. Class warfare. Just complete nonsense. So, Joe Lombardo, please think next time you endorse the Republican nominee. I'm glad that you're criticizing the idea of cutting Medicaid, but we need to be more careful about things going forward. Who you vote for, who you endorse, matters. Pay attention to their record. Pay attention to how much they lie in general, because if they're lying about other stuff, they're probably lying about their plans to supposedly not cut Medicaid. If you like this video, please like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. This has been the More the Merrier, and I look forward to speaking to you in my next video.